Good evening. It's me, Dr. Amanda Kemp, and welcome to this conversation about white fragility and how to do racial justice and connection work. So first I want to tell you a little bit about me. So most of you who are on this, if you are on this, probably know me because we're Facebook friends, but you may not know a lot about me. I want to say that I was born in Mississippi, in segregated Mississippi in the 1960s, at a time when Black people could not give birth at the main hospital. So I was brought into the world under conditions of segregation. But I left Mississippi, my mother took me, and we ended up in the South Bronx. I grew up in a neighborhood that was mainly Black and Puerto Rican. And when I say Black, I mean West Indian, African American, people of African descent, and then Puerto Rican and Latinos who were of African descent. I don't know what happened, but we're back. So let's just pick up and just make the point that my whole life I've been an advocate and a fighter for justice and for oneness. The answer to me is never more separation as a state of being, although I am a practitioner of people coming together around specific parts of our identity to heal and to investigate further what we need to investigate to learn more about ourselves. So let's talk about Robin DiAngelo's article, White Fragility. We're reading this article in my class right now that I'm teaching here in Lancaster called Say the Wrong Thing, Strategies for Racial Justice from the Heart. And so I actually really love this article because what she did so brilliantly was to make something that was constantly happening, not about individuals, but she was able to identify a group dynamic. So if you do enough work on racial justice, if you have enough interaction with white people who are dealing with race and racism, you're going to encounter white fragility without even knowing the name of it, perhaps. What to call this thing that you will see again and again. So let me start by summarizing what she says white fragility is. Basically, she says that white people are protected from race-based stress, that they expect racial comfort. They have a low ability to tolerate racial stress because they're always cushioned and protected from it. So it's like a tree. If the tree encounters a lot of wind as it's growing up, it's going to develop strong and stronger roots, right? Deeper and deeper roots. And it's going to be able to withstand those gales. But if a tree has never had to face resistance, it never had to stand up in opposition to the wind, then it's more likely to fall down the first time it encounters something if it's not had that built into its conditioning. So and that's our argument about white Americans and racial stress. They don't have to encounter it enough so that they build up some capacity. And of course, there's always exceptions to everything. The other point that she makes is that because of this low ability to tolerate racial stress, then there are certain ways that white people tend to react when faced with cognitive dissonance, faced with the idea or the experience that what they thought America was in terms of it being fair, in terms of it being, I don't know, a racial democracy, a melting pot. When people lose their illusions about this country or about history or about the way systems have really worked to lock lots and lots of us out or to denigrate us, that's destabilizing. It just is. It's like, I heard Ricardo Levins Morales say that America could be likened to a dysfunctional family. And so when the truth starts to come out, people who played different roles in that family get agitated, and some get freed up by the truth coming out. But some of the people who've been hiding from it, who haven't wanted to face it, maybe who benefited from the abuse that's gone on, get destabilized and disoriented because what they thought was the case is no longer the case. So So a lot of times when white people encounter the idea that racism isn't about a personal choice to be good or bad, that it's not, that it didn't go away in the 1960s and 70s, that it's systemic, pernicious, and happening right now, there's a lot of resistance to that because it causes dislocation and disequilibrium. So Robin talks about the emotions that people face. So people get angry, they feel guilty, they feel sad, they feel really, really defensive. And these emotions lead them to take certain actions. Like, people start to argue. They'll say, well, which law said that, Black people and white people get married? Or which pope signed that, doctrine of discovery? It's sort of like, prove it to me more, whatever, because that reality is so hard to really accept. Or there'll be a thing about a silence, and I've experienced this, where you'll say something and be like, so what do you all think? Because I've taught at the academic level, at the college level for over 10 years, and I have had some really interesting silences. And sometimes that silence is about, I will not have this conversation, I will not open myself up, I am pulling way out, even if I'm physically here. And then, of course, the other tendency that Robin DiAngelo notes is that, people will leave. So you may have been in a racial justice workshop where, in the middle of it, somebody physically storms out, or somebody leaves. It's a multi-day workshop and somebody leaves in the middle of the night and you were like, whoa, okay. The stress was just too much. So if you want to get this article yourself, you can get it. It's on the internet. It's readily accessible. You can find it in the International Journal of Critical Pedagogy. And again, it's by Robin DiAngelo. I summarized it really quickly because what I actually want to talk about tonight is what to do in the face of that, and how I use the strategies of the heart that I've developed, my system to deal with white fragility when it emerges. So when I talk about the strategies of the heart, I'm talking about the strategies that I lay out in my book, Say the Wrong Thing, Stories and Strategies for Racial Justice and Authentic Community. And so I use the heart as an acronym. So each letter of the word heart is a strategy. And the first strategy, the foundational strategy that we use, is hold space for transformation. Now, I didn't make this up. This is something that was first introduced to me by Neonu Span, who is an amazing educator and mentor in the work of wholeness, of racial justice, of social justice. So this strategy of hold space for transformation is something that she said has given her sustenance to stay the course in this work over many years. So I started paying more attention to it because, when someone who has been in it for a long time says this is something that has helped me, you kind of go, okay, let me check that one out. So holding space for transformation, very simply put, is to generate a feeling or an attitude, a mindset of unconditional love and unconditional acceptance without losing your sense of justice. So it's a paradox. It's a both and. So, and it relies on the breath. It is about being in your body and choosing to hold space for transformation, to bring unconditional love and unconditional acceptance right now. But it is not about rescuing people. And what I've seen somehow, or people get confused with being compassionate or adopting an attitude of unconditional love and unconditional acceptance. sometimes people take that to mean, oh, let me rescue you from whatever pain that you're in. Hold space for transformation is a little more impersonal. It's about holding the energy of unconditional love and unconditional acceptance as you go through your process, recognizing that we each have to go through a process. We're each and all gonna learn, have to learn, and have to readjust ourselves away from the current system. And sometimes it's really hard. So, but holding space for transformation, what I love about it in relationship to white fragility is that it gives me a soft place to be. It lets me draw on my feminine power in the face of someone else's emotional reactions. And what I love about it is that people's feelings aren't bad. It's not like we want to condemn people for feeling angry, guilty, sad, disoriented, guilty, it just is. Feelings come up. So I don't want to shame someone for having any of those feelings. And I don't want to be manipulated by them. I don't want to be dominated by them. So when I hold space for transformation, I sit inside of my own power. I'm grounding. I'm like that tree, sending my roots way down into the truth of what I know. And the truth of what I know is that there's only one of us here. We're all one. And so this person who is acting out or acting up or feeling out or feeling up is really just is an extension of me. And I want to treat me with compassion. And I don't want to delude me or to undermine me by colluding with white supremacy. So holding space for transformation gives me a way to be with somebody while they're going through whatever it is that they're going through without rescuing them. And inviting that energy of unconditional love and unconditional acceptance to do its magic. The other thing that I really want us to do, and this especially to me, this is especially for people of color and women of color, is when we have a situation where there's a white person emoting, especially a white woman, because it tends to be one of the typical things that tends to happen is that you'll get a white woman crying, kind of breaking down in some way under the weight of guilt or shock or sadness. And then you may have some people jumping in to save her, including people of color who've been trained to sort of play that mammy role. So holding space gives us somewhere to stand in a space of compassion and also strength, letting someone work their way through what they're feeling. But the other thing that I think is important for people of color to do when someone is having a white fragility moment is to notice what's going on inside of ourselves. Just track, what are we feeling in our own bodies? Paying close attention to where we are getting triggered, where perhaps we shut down, or where we feel, maybe an upsurge of rage, or discomfort, fear, because someone white is upset and, did I do something wrong? I've had that reaction. And just being with yourself, noticing what's going on with you, gives you an opportunity to make some choices about what to do. So reflecting on yourself, which is R, is one of the second strategies it is the second strategy that I teach people. Once we've got some grounding in how to hold space for transformation, the second strategy is to really reflect on yourself, to stay with yourself, to track yourself as you are in whatever the dynamic is of white fragility, so that you can make choices, conscious choices about what do you need, what does your body need, what does the whole group need, and what does the person who's having their fragility experience need, so that you can choose. And one of the things that I really stress for people of color, especially women of color, is that we not martyr ourselves because we feel like we have to educate or we have to provide what Robin DiAngelo calls racial comfort to folks. So I ask you to reflect on yourself. Take that space to go inside. Be with yourself. Notice what's going on with yourself and tend to yourself. It's like when that oxygen mask comes down in the airplane and they say, put yours on before you put it on your child, who of course you love and you want to protect with all your might. First, put your oxygen mask on. Tend to yourself so that you can come from strength. One of the dangers of when we come from sacrifice, when we're, quote, helping people, but we're sacrificing ourselves as we do that, sometimes we end up lashing out at the people that we're supposedly helping. Or we end up enabling their low functioning so we can be super high functioning. Or we are punishing ourselves unconsciously for somehow making maybe someone uncomfortable. So there's a lot to drill in. So, one of the interesting things is that when people say, oh yeah, I want to do your class, Amanda, or, talk to me about racism, a lot of times people are like, I just want to know what to do. They want to go right to the doing, meaning they want to go to the external action. Like, what can they say to that person? So next time, they won't be stuck with a sense of just being immobilized, or they want to know what they could do because when they speak at this point, they're just constantly shutting people down, because their anger is so overwhelming that the whole room shuts up and they just feel like, okay, well, that dialogue just ended. So people say, what do I do? What do I do? And I want to tell you, one of the first things you can do is hold space for transformation, cultivate that capacity. So thank you for being with me here tonight, everybody. I'm sorry for the delay and the hiccup in the program. I look forward to being with you again. And if you want to know more about what's going on, if you want to read more about what I'm doing and check out what I'm reading, please Kemp.com. I would love to see you there. I'm also on Facebook, as you know, and please check out my book, Say the Wrong Thing, Stories and Strategies for Racial Justice. All right, have a good night, and I'm looking forward to seeing y'all. Peace and love. Peace and love. Bye-bye. Oh, I don't know how to end my broadcast yet. Okay, I just found it. Bye.